Today's world news begins with a story from Iran and the wider Middle East. Iran says the Iranian school hit by a deadly strike was the real target. Iranian officials say the school itself was not the intended target, but for many people that claim does not change the human tragedy. A large number of people were killed, families lost children, parents lost sons and daughters. The pain is already too deep. At the same time, the Houthis say they launched a missile towards Israel. That means the conflict is not staying in one place. It is spreading across borders. It is drawing in more groups. It is creating fear in more countries. Every new missile and every new strike increases the danger. It also makes peace look more distant. People across the region are watching closely. They fear what may come next. They fear that one attack will lead to another and then another. That is how wars grow. That is how civilian suffering grows even faster. The next story takes us back to one of the darkest moments from the first day of this war. It is the strike on a school that killed 168 people. Even hearing that number is painful. A school is a place people connect with children, learning, safety, and hope. It is not a place where people expect death on such a scale. That is why this story carries such emotional weight. It reminds the world how quickly war can destroy ordinary life. It reminds the world that civilians often pay the highest price. The first day of war already left a wound that has not healed. Now that story is in focus again. It is returning to public attention. It is forcing people to look again at what happened. It is forcing painful questions. Why did this happen? Could it have been prevented? Who should be held responsible? These are not small questions. They matter because the families of the dead still live with that loss every day. The memory does not go away. The grief does not go away. And when the story returns to the headlines, the pain returns with it. Iran now says the United States and Israel have attacked a clinic near the site of that fatal school strike. This claim is adding even more anger to an already tense situation. A clinic is a place linked to treatment, care, and survival. In times of war, such places carry even greater importance. When people are injured, they need help. When families are in fear, they run to places where lives can be saved. When there is any report of an attack near or on a medical site, it creates strong reaction. It creates fear among civilians. It creates outrage among people, those who believe such places should be protected at all costs. Even the idea of a clinic being hit shocks people. It deepens the sense that nowhere is safe. Not schools, not homes, not clinics for ordinary people. That is one of the most terrifying parts of war. The line between safe place and dangerous place disappears. You no longer know where to hide. You no longer know where to run. That kind of uncertainty changes daily life completely. It turns fear into a constant feeling. Another major story comes from Lebanon, where an Israeli strike has killed 3 journalists. This has raised serious concern about the safety of media workers in war zones. Journalists go to dangerous places to report what is happening. They help the world see the truth. They show the human side of conflict. They record the destruction. They record the loss. They speak to survivors. They gather facts in places many people cannot reach. But this work comes with great risk. In war, journalists can find themselves very close to danger. Sometimes they are caught in the middle of attacks. Sometimes their presence does not protect them. The killing of 3 journalists is not only a personal tragedy for their families, friends, and colleagues. It is also a blow to the flow of information. When journalists are killed, the world loses witnesses. It becomes harder to know what is happening on the ground. It becomes harder for people outside the war zone to understand the full reality. This story also reminds us that conflict does not only kill fighters, it kills civilians, it kills workers, it kills reporters. War reaches far beyond the battlefield. Our next story is from Tehran, where some residents say they are slowly getting used to the sound of strikes. That sentence is simple, but it carries a heavy meaning. No one should have to get used to the sound of war. No city should reach a point where explosions start to feel normal. But when conflict continues, day after day, people begin to adapt in order to survive mentally. They learn to tell one sound from another. They try to guess how near or far an explosion is. They continue only life as much as they can. They eat, they sleep, they go outside, then when possible, they check on family members, they try to act normal, even when normal life is gone. This is one of the quiet tragedies of war. The world often pays attention to the biggest moments, the deadliest strikes, and the financial statements. But there is another side too. It is the slow change inside ordinary people. It is the way fear becomes routine. It is the way stress settles into the body. It is the way children grow up hearing sounds no child should hear. For some people in Tehran, survival now includes learning to live beside constant danger. That is not peace, that is not safety, it is by only endurance. And now to South Asia, where Nepal's former Prime Minister has been arrested over fatal protest crackdown. This is a major political development. It is not just another normal legal story. It touches power, responsibility, and public anger. A deadly protest crackdown means people died during unrest. That alone makes the case very serious. When a former leader is arrested in connection with such events, the whole country pays attention. Supporters may say the action is political. Critics may say justice is finally moving forward. In many countries, cases like these divide public opinion. They only old wounds. They bring back painful memories. They force a nation to ask what kind of accountability it wants from powerful people. This arrest may now shape Nepal's political future. It may affect trust in institutions. It may influence party politics. It may even change how people remember recent history. For the families of those who died, in case many carry strong emotional meaning. For young people, it may send a message about whether leaders can be held responsible. For the wider reason, it is another reminder that political instability can take many forms. Sometimes it appears on the battlefield. Sometimes it appears in the streets. When you look at all 6 stories together, one theme becomes clear. Ordinary people are carrying the heaviest burden. In Iran, civilians are living near deadly strikes. Families are mourning those killed at a school. Fear is growing around reports of attacks near American sites. In Lebanon, journalists trying to report the news have lost their lives. In Tehran, residents are adapting to the sound of explosions. In Nepal, a deadly protest crackdown continues to shape politics and public emotion. These are different places. They have different histories. They have different leaders and different conflicts, but one thing connects them. Human suffering sits at the center of every story. War and political violence often begin with official statements, military action, or government decisions, but they are felt mostly deeply in homes, streets, schools, hospitals, and neighborhoods. A family waits for a child who never comes home. A city learns to live with fear. A reporter dies while trying to show the truth. A country reopens a painful chapter of its own past. These are not just headlines. These are lives being changed, broken, or ended. The story of the school strike remains especially powerful because schools represent the future. When a school becomes the site of mass death, something deeper is lost. People do not only mourn the dead, they mourn what those lives could have become. They mourn birthdays that will never come, that they mourn dreams that will never be fulfilled. That is why such stories stay in public memory. They become symbols of the cruelty of war. The story of the clinic claim carries its own deep fear. In war, medical care can mean the difference between life and death. If people begin to feel that even clinics are unsafe, panic grows. People may delay seeking treatment. They may lose faith in any place of revenge. The result is not only physical danger, it is psychological collapse. Fear spreads faster when people believe nowhere is protected. The killing of journalists in Lebanon also deserves careful reflection. Journalism is one of the ways the world stays connected to truth during conflict. Without reporters, many tragedies remain unseen. Many victims remain unheard. Many powerful people escape scrutiny. That is why attacks that kill journalists shock so many people. It feels like an attack not only on individuals, but on the world's ability to witness reality. The report from Tehran may sound quieter than the others, but it speaks to one of the deepest effects of prolonged violence. Humans can adapt to almost everything, anything. That is one of our strengths, but it can also be heartbreaking. When people get used to the sound of strikes, it means the abnormal has become normal. It means peace has been replaced by survival habits. It means the mind is adjusting to fear in order to continue functioning. And in Nepal, the arrest of a former prime minister shows that violence does not disappear when the streets become quiet. Its consequences can return later through courts, investigations, and public debate. Justice may move slowly, but memories do not disappear. Countries often carry such memories for years. One arrest can reopen many questions about power and responsibility. So these 6 stories matter not only because they are happening now. They matter because they show larger truths about our world. Conflicts expand, civilian pain deepens, institutions are tested, truth becomes harder to protect, fear enters everyday life, political accountability becomes a national struggle. This is why these headlines deserve attention. They are not isolated moments. They are part of a larger picture of a world where tension is rising in many places at once. A world where civilians remain vulnerable. A world where the search for justice, safety, and truth is still ongoing. For now, these are the 6 major stories in focus. Iran and the foreign remain under pressure. Lebanon is mourning the deaths of journalists. Tehran continues under the shadow of strikes. Nepal faces major political and legal moment, and the memory of the school strike remains a painful reminder of how war can destroy innocent lives from the very first day. These stories will continue to develop. Their impact will continue to grow, and for millions of people, they are not just news, they are daily reality. When you look at all 6 stories together, one theme becomes clear. Ordinary people are carrying the heaviest burden in Iran. Civilians are living near deadly strikes. Families are mourning those killed at school. Fear is growing around reports of attacks near medical sites. In Lebanon, journalists trying to report the news have lost their lives. In Tehran, residents are adapting to the sound of explosions. In Nepal, a deadly protest crackdown continues to shape politics and public emotion. These are different places. They have different histories. They have different leaders and different conflicts, but but one thing connects them. Human suffering sits at the center of every story. War and political violence often begin with official statements, military action, or government decisions, but they are felt most deeply in homes, streets, schools, hospitals, and neighborhoods. A family waits for a child who never comes home. A city learns to live with fear. A reporter dies while trying to show the truth. A country opens a painful chapter of its own past. These are not just headlines. These are lives being changed, broken, or ended. The story of the school strike remains especially powerful because schools represent the future. When a school becomes the site of mass death, something deeper is lost. People do not only mourn the dead, they mourn what those lives could have become. They mourn birthdays that will never come. They mourn deaths, dreams that will never be fulfilled. That is why such stories stay in public memory. They become symbols of the cruelty of war.